Okay, guys, it is 11 o'clock and we've got a number of people that have signed in. So today we're talking about WebForms again. Hopefully this is useful for everyone. These sessions I do, they're fairly similar each time, but because of that, I want to encourage you to ask questions as we go along, okay? So I'm going to do a few things, just show you how to create a template. We're going to talk about how to add clauses to a template, some cautions around that, and then how to use that template to create a transaction kit. So why don't we just jump right in. I'm going to mute everybody. Again, if you want to talk, just press your space bar. And I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so I've already logged into WebForms here. And hopefully you guys can see that. Everybody can see my dashboard? Yeah, okay. All right, so all I'm going to do here is just give you a quick rundown of navigation inside WebForms, as I think most of you have been in here before. The reminders that I like to give people when you're using WebForms, if you get lost, you're too buried deep, too deep in this thing, just remember this little speedometer logo here. When you hover on it, it says dashboard, or if I open this menu by using the hamburger menu here, the one that says dashboard, that brings you back to square one. So if you're stuck, you got, where the heck am I in this system? Hit the dashboard button, it brings you back to this main page, okay? So when we're gonna create a transaction, so you've been showing property to someone, you're gonna do an offer on a piece of property, then you're gonna create what we used to call a transaction kit. They just call them transactions now. If you're really pressed for time, it can be helpful to use a template, right? So that template is something that you would just copy from, and it would have all of the forms that you might need to create your new transaction from. So you'll have your agreement of purchase and sale, your confirmation of cooperation, your 801 if it's another brokerage's property, that kind of stuff. So let's look at that from scratch. So to create a template, what we're going to do is you can click this little plus sign next to the right here, or the word create template. Okay, either is fine. What this is going to do is going to take me into my database of templates, and these are all templates I've created in these training sessions. But if I needed to do a new one, if I'm starting from scratch, or if I wanted to do a completely new one, I go to the top right corner here where it says add, and when I hover over it, it says create transaction template. So I click that. And this is going to create a blank template now, okay? So I'm going to just call this one training template just for fun. You would call it whatever you want. So if you were doing a property, for example, a residential purchase in the city of Peterborough, then if it was me, I would call it residential city purchase or residential purchase city of Peterborough, something like that, okay? And then we just click save. The other options there, it says type and description. You can fill those in. You don't really need to. The type is the property type, for example. So I could say it's a residential sale. This becomes important if I end up with dozens of templates and I need to be able to sort them, then I can search by type, transaction template type. And the description, again, I could put in a description here and talk about, you know, which clauses I've included in this particular template, but really not necessary. If you do put something in here, just click update and then it resaves, okay? Again, give it a meaningful name. I'm just calling this training template just for training purposes. Give it a meaningful name so you can find it again, okay? And the beauty of WebForms, as I've discussed before, is to ignore most of the stuff that you see on the screen. Don't let it confuse you. All we've really got to do when we're creating a template is go down to forms, okay? So I click forms and you note that it says empty. There's none time because this is a brand new template. There's nothing in the system. It's not smart enough to know what to put in it. Just because I told it was a residential sale doesn't mean that the system is smart enough to know what forms to put in here, okay? So I've got to go over here and click the plus sign, add forms. And then I've got to start adding forms to my kit. Now, two schools of thought on this. If I'm working with a buyer early in the process, we spoke with Lynn McCabe last week. She was on and talked about the buyer consultation process, right? And it happens very early in the relationship. You get the buyer into your office or you do a Zoom meeting like this and you share the forms with them and you get your buyer representation agreement. You are working with a realtor and FinTrack out of the way early so that you're not having to do that stuff later. You might show them an agreement of purchase and sale and confirmation of cooperation so they understand the forms, but you do the buyer stuff early in the process. So this buyer kit, let's do this the right way today. The buyer kit only has a few documents in it because we've already done FinTrack, we've already done buyer rep, we've already done working with a realtor. So let's set that aside and just put what we need in this kit to do the transaction, okay? So first and foremost, what do I need? I need an agreement of purchase and sale. So I've got a couple of ways to put this in here. I can put in the search box right here. I can just type in the name of the form that I'm looking for, or I can type in the form number, whatever I've got. And I know that a residential agreement of purchase and sale is a form 100. So I can just type 100, and I'm not pushing anything else on my keyboard. I'm just letting it do its search in the background. And there it is. Okay. So Ontario 100 agreement of purchase and sale residential. And I choose this little circle here, the select button, and hit the checkbox, and you'll see this basket lights up and it's got a 1 in it, telling me there's one form in the basket. What else do I need to do to actually do a transaction in the moment? I need a confirmation of cooperation. And I don't know the form numbers for all of these things. So I just type confirmation and again, sit and wait, and the system does the search in the background. Okay, so confirmation of cooperation or representation. Yes, that's what I want. And then I also need to do an agreement of purchase and sale. I'm going to need, let's say it's a Royal LePage listing. I'm going to need an 801, right? Because they like to see that offer summary document. I'm going to include that there. Okay. And let's throw a wrench in this one. I'm going to say this buyer has said to me, I know that I need to sell my house first, but I'm going to take the risk and not put my house on the market. Potentially they're going to do that. This is a template, but potentially they would do that in the future. I might need a form 127. That is acknowledgement, reconditions, and offer. This is something that I suggest you put in your templates anyway, because it really can protect you. If the buyer says to you at any point in the future, when you're creating a transaction kit, I don't want that condition, I don't want that other condition, just make it nice and clean, but you know bloody well they should be including it, you can use this form to protect yourself. So I've chosen 4 different forms, and I know that because the little 4 is in the basket here. When I click add, it's going to grab those forms from the database and put them into my template. Okay, and there they are. That's all I have to do to create a template. That's at its bare minimum. I could stop right there and I've got a working template now. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to hit my dashboard button, go back to the beginning. Okay, and it doesn't show up here anywhere because it's not a working transaction. It's just a template. But if I said I'm going to create a transaction based on that template, so I hit transaction, and this is sample offer number 125. Okay, so that's just the name of the transaction. All I'm doing is giving it a name so that I can easily find it later. And then I say template right here. It says none. So I'm going to use that template I just created, template training template, by using the drop-down button and selecting the template that I want. And I'm the cooperating salesperson. I hit create. It's as simple as that. Now I'm going to have a working transaction with those 4 forms in it. Okay, it's got no clauses in it. It's got nothing filled out, but I have a working transaction kit that I can now work on. So it's that fast. We've been on this call for 8 minutes, and I've created a transaction template, put 4 forms into it, and created a transaction kit from that template. Okay. Any questions on this before I keep going? No? Okay. Actually, let me ask you this question. Were you expecting to see something different in this process so far? Okay. Just want to make sure everybody's keeping up. Okay. Let me go back now to my template, and we can edit the template further. One of the things I wanted to show you, because I get asked about it fairly often, is how do I create a template that already has my clauses in it, so that I don't have to spend time thinking about it. I'm not going to forget anything. All my clauses are already in my template, in my offer, so that I can move forward fairly quickly. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this create template. All right, because I want to work on the template, not the kit. The transaction kit is the final kit that I'm going to use to create the final documents to do my offer presentation, but the template is the one I'm going to use over and over again. So I'm going to go back to create template, and this will take me to my list of templates, right? And if I scroll down here to training template, there it is, okay? And all I've got to do is click on the name of the template. If I want to edit that one, I just click on the name, and there it is, okay? So it's still called, I can change the name now if I want to. I can change the description, whatever I need to. But I'm going to go down here to forms, and there are my 4 forms in my kit, okay? So to edit a form in the kit, in the transaction template, excuse me, in the template, I'm going to click on the name of that form to bring up the editor, and then whatever I save in the template now will be there over and over and over again when I create new transactions based on that template, okay? There we go. So I'm going to go down to my Schedule A because in the template, again, this is what I'm using to base new transactions off in the future. I'm not going to fill in these blanks because it wouldn't be meaningful, right? Because it's going to be some date in the future. Additionally, property information does not belong in a template, right? Only in the transaction. So in my template, I'm going to scroll down to Schedule A. Here we are, there's Schedule A, okay? Excuse me. And I'm going to go down here to where I would start inserting my clauses, okay? So when I click in any one of these boxes, you'll see a green box jumps up around it. That green box tells me that's the area that I'm editing. So if I click down here, I'm editing the clause section of my offer, okay? So now it's highlighted. Whatever I do next is going to appear in that section. So across the top, we have some options here. So these icons, and sometimes these icons show up with words next to them. For whatever reason, mine doesn't. I'm not even really sure why. But the first one is file, and it's got all the associated actions I can do along with that. This one is font, so I can change the font size and color, etc. This is clauses. So this is the one we want to go to right now. So because I want to add clauses to my template offer. So I hit clause. And again, when you're looking for clauses in the database, it's similar to looking for forms in the database. I can use these folders and try to nail down or narrow down my search, but I don't need to do that. I can just click in the search box and start searching for what I need, right? So in most cases, we're going to look for the buyer agrees to pay the balance of the purchase price, right? So I'm just going to type the word balance of purchase price, and there it is. It's step pay 2, and I click the select button. Again, just like adding forms to the template, adding clauses to the offer is the same thing. I'm going to choose the select button, and it lights up in the basket here. Now, if I click OK at this point, it's going to drop just that one clause in, okay? So not incorrect, but I still have to put other clauses in here. So typically what I would suggest you do when you're adding clauses to your template or to a transaction kit is add all of the clauses in the selection boxes all at once and let the system drop them in to the Schedule A. To me, that just makes it easier. But I can go back and add additional clauses still. So the green box is still lit up. I'm still modifying the clauses section of this template. I'm going to go back to my clause button, click that, and then I'm going to search for some more. So typically, doing an offer on a residential property, I'm going to have a financing condition, an inspection condition, and a couple of others. So let's start with those. The trick about finding a financing clause in here, if you type in financing, it's not going to come up. So you got to remember this, you got to search for mortgage or mort, okay? Or use the database and search the system clauses. Typically, the clauses I see you guys use is mort 4, condition arranging new mortgage satisfactory to the buyer. If I'm not sure this is the right clause, while I'm looking in the database, I can click on the title for that clause, and it shows me the preview. And yep, that's the one I want. So I hit close and then select. Okay, scroll back up. Now I've got this one. Now it only says 1 here. Even though I've already got the buyer agrees to pay the balance clause in the offer, this basket is only showing me the selections I'm making this time. This time I'm going into the database looking for clauses. So that's why you only see 1 there. Don't get confused by that, okay? So we need financing inspection, right? We need to have the property inspected, generally speaking. So if I just type inspect, there we go. Now I'm going to look for condition inspection by property by a home inspector. Check it. Yep, that's the one I want. And select. What else do we need? We need, it's not as common as it used to be for some reason, but what about insurance? Insurance condition, arranging insurance, there we go. Select that one. Now you can see this is building up. I've got 3 clauses in here. Right to view the property. Often we want to have our clients, excuse me, give our clients the right to be able to go back in and see a property before closing. Surprisingly, that's an inspection clause. So if I type inspect here, because if you type view, it won't necessarily come up. The wording in the pre-printed clause, excuse me, The wording in the pre-printed clause doesn't say the right to view the property, one further time or 3 further times. It says the right to inspect. So I type inspect here, and I think it's number 14 or 15. So let me go down my list here.
Mr. Layla, can I ask you a question?
Please.
Once you've inserted those, can you adjust them if you wanted to edit the wording for some reason?
After you've inserted them, absolutely. So let's do that next. I'm going to select this one. Go back to the top. Now I've got 4. Now if I click OK, it drops them in here, right? So can you edit them? 100% you can, because now it's just a text editor. So I'm going to go in here. This offer is conditional upon the buyer arranging at the buyer's own expense a new blank mortgage. So I would delete the blank and just type first, right? Now, if I wanted to change this to say, I don't want the word charge in there, because technically you don't need the word charge in there, you can delete it like that, okay? If I wanted to create my own condition, we did a session a couple of weeks ago on crafting conditions, right? If I wanted to have this offer is conditional on the, and what might be very apropos today is viewing and approving the property. We want to do the offer prior to actually physically viewing the property, right? We've done virtual tours of 6 properties. The buyers have eliminated 5. They found one. They said, you know what, if that property is as we've seen it in the photos and the video, we want to buy that property, but let's see if we can negotiate terms in advance. And then we'll go and view the property. And if we don't like it, we want some way out. I would start with, for example, this financing clause. And all I'm doing is highlighting the clause. And I'm going to hit copy, go to the bottom here, and then paste it in. And then I'm going to change the wording. So can you edit the clauses? Absolutely. This offer is conditional upon the buyer viewing and approving the property in the buyer's sole and absolute discretion. Okay, and then the rest of the clause makes sense. I would add my time frame in here, 5 p.m. on May 1st, if this was an actual offer I was working on. So I just wanted to show you that as an example. Good question, Jack. You can absolutely edit this. Okay. Now, having said that,
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, you're welcome. What I'm going to do because this is a template, I'm not going to edit these clauses, right? I'm going to leave these as they are so that when I actually create a transaction based on this template in the future, I can make the appropriate changes so that it makes sense in the moment, right? So I'm not going to fill in these time frames here. I'm not going to fill in dates. I'm going to leave this as it is right now. And for you, you would need to go through, and if you have typical clauses that you use on a regular basis, you'd go through the database and add them to this template so that when, again, down the road, you're showing property and somebody wants to make an offer, you've got your typical clauses in here, okay? So a couple other things that go along with that. Don't forget to add additional things that are pertinent for that particular transaction. You're doing an offer on a house with a pool, for example, and you don't have that in your template. You got to make sure that you go into the database and get those additional clauses and add them to this. Okay, so maybe along the heels of what Jack just asked there, this is a template. Okay, so let's pretend we're going to build an offer based on this template now. Okay, so this saves on the fly. It's already saved in my database in this template. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my dashboard. And I'm going to create a transaction as if I was going to actually sell a property now and use that template as the basis of my deal. Okay, so I hit create transaction now. And this is, I'm going to sell Jack's house. Jack's house. And I'm going to use the template that I just created. Training template, right? And I'm going to say create. So now I'm creating an actual transaction based on the template that we just created. I go over to the right-hand side. Remember, we've talked about this before. Ignore this page. All this stuff that you see here, just ignore it, bypass it. It's going to confuse the heck out of you. Click on forms on the right-hand side. And these are the forms that are in my transaction kit based on the template that I already created. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the agreement of purchase and sale because there are blanks in this. This is the actual transaction based on the template. It's got to be filled out to make it pertinent for this property today. Okay. So I'm going to pretend that I'm filling all this stuff in. I don't know I don't know where Jack lives, so I'm not going to actually fill it in.
Oh, yes, you do.
But if I go down here to my Schedule A, look there in my actual working template, or excuse me, my actual working transaction, the form or the clauses that I inserted in my template appear, okay? But I can still edit this. So I'm in my transaction. Now I can go down here and add clauses about, clause about the pool. Right? I can put my own text in there, or I can go back to the top under clauses and search for additional clauses, right? And add them in here. So I wonder if there's a pool clause if I just type that. I see there's a question in the chat. I'll get to that in a moment. And I'm just grabbing this at random. Okay, it doesn't much matter, but I can still add additional clauses to my Schedule A here in the working transaction kit, even though I had previously inserted clauses in the template. Okay, so let me just get to these questions. How do you add a Schedule B? I think it's a different form you add. So Monica, adding a Schedule B, you can add another form that's a blank schedule, right? And you can add that information. But if you're talking about, say, a Royal LePage Schedule B, you want to add that to your offer, you don't do it here. You're going to use that. If you're meeting your clients in person, like we did in the before times, you would actually just print off their Schedule B and attach it to it. If you're going to use DocuSign, then there's another step in DocuSign to do that, and I can talk about that in a minute.
Okay, no, I was actually thinking our office schedule being with the with our pre-printed the
the trust account clause.
Yes, that's the one.
Okay, so
and just have that in there, because that seems to be I've had it missing several times in my documents, and I've totally forgot all about it.
Yeah, so let me get back to that in a minute, okay? Because there's a really simple thing you can do. You can actually create a custom clause and insert our trust account clause as one of your personal clauses in the database. And then you don't even have to have a Schedule B, quote unquote Schedule B. You can just drop it right in Schedule A. As long as it's identified in the agreement somewhere, there's no magic about having it appear on a separate schedule, okay? And Stacy said, I think it's a different form you add. Can you elaborate on that, Stacy? Stacy?
Hold on, I'm not. Hold on.
I unmuted you.
Oh, okay.
So
I thought it was a separate form you added, but
for what? For Schedule B?
for the Schedule B.
Yeah, you can add an additional blank schedule in WebForms, but typically we already have the Schedule B from a competing office. They've already put it in the documents on Matrix, so you can just pull it out and upload that with your other documents to DocuSign. If you add, there is a section, and I'm bouncing around here, and I apologize if I'm going too wonky on this, but there is a section in WebForms that says Documents. Additional forms and documents. If you put your Schedule B in that, there's no way to get it from there to DocuSign. This version of WebForms was built for those companies that don't have the resources that we do, and for people that just to have online document storage. And in fact, it makes it more complicated in my mind. So I don't use the storage in WebForms for that stuff. I keep it on my computer and upload it to DocuSign when I'm sending this stuff over to DocuSign. Okay.
Is it possible for the office to put it under the office clauses so we can just pull it directly from there?
It's a good question. I haven't got that far yet. So we'll figure that out.
Great idea, Monica.
Dean asked, is there a due diligence clause? Yes, there are. A bunch of due diligence clauses in WebForms. I'm not a fan of the due diligence clause that's in WebForms. It's a really high level, the buyer has the right to do their due diligence, but due diligence isn't a legal term. So I would rather that you were more specific. So if you're adding clauses to your offer and you want to have give the buyer some time to do investigations with respect to building permits, for example, then say that. Create a clause that says that. A blanket due diligence clause is to me, not the best way to protect your client's interests. Okay, but yes, there is. If I go into the clause database and type diligence, I'm sure it'll come up. No, not there. There is a due diligence clause, Dean. I just can't remember what clause number it is, but there is one in there. I'd have to dig around to find it. But again, it's not my favorite clause. I see it fairly often. People use it in our marketplace. I tend to see it on multifamily stuff or on commercial properties. They are attempting to do their best for their clients, but it's really not the best clause to use. Okay.
Why I'm asking, Doug, is because I've looked in all the clauses. I printed out all the clauses for AREA for 2020.
Yeah.
And the other page that I held up the other day with the numbers, and I didn't see one. So I'm thinking we have to sort of make our own. I know Con gave me one at one time.
Mm-hmm. If you guys want, I can post, I have a really extensive due diligence clause that I use for development projects, and it covers absolutely everything. And what I would suggest if you wanted to use that clause is you just add and remove sections of it. It's called a stacked clause. So it says this offer is conditional upon the following, and it's got a long list of things in there. And then you can add and remove whatever you need or don't need in that stacked clause. That's perfectly appropriate. Again, because it goes to the specifics. It's not just random due diligence. We want to check it out. We want to see if we can get a septic system. We want to see if there's a road allowance. We want to see if we can get the zoning we need. We want to see if we can get building permits. It's very specific, and to me, that's much more enforceable and action oriented. I like having actions associated with offers. If a buyer is forced into doing something specific, they can't say, "Well, we just changed our mind." Well, did you do the thing you said you were going to do? So that's why I would rather see you use something like that.
And
so
I totally agree with that. I'd like to be specific too. So maybe you can share that clause.
Will do. Okay, I'll add that to the when I upload the video of this. I'll include that clause. Okay, or a document containing it. Okay. Okay, so I think I've answered the questions you guys had around modifying this. So we talked about how to create a template, and adding forms to that template. We talked about adding clauses to your template offer so that when you recreate new transactions based on the template, those clauses are already there. Here's another caution for you though, right? Exactly to Dean's point, that Constantine does a great job of sharing with us all of the new clauses that are updated on an annual basis. When you insert clauses in a template, right, they stay static. They don't change. So if this financing clause, for example, that's in here, this MORT 4 clause, there will be a MORT 4 clause next year in the database, but they might change a few words in it, right, in the database. This one in the template will never change. It's static. It's not connected. It's no longer connected to the database once it's in here, especially because I can go in and make changes to it. If it was connected to the database and I made changes to these words, like just change that word, it's going to stay that way forever. It doesn't get updated when the database is updated. So you're going to have to go in at least once a year into all of your template kits and all of your template offers, erase all of these clauses and reinsert them, okay? So that you've got these clauses in your template offers. For this reason, when I was trading, I never used these standard clauses in my template offers. I'm not a proponent of this. I want you to know how to do it because we're asked on a regular basis, how do we do it? But to protect yourself and your clients, I'm sure I wouldn't be doing this. But if you are, put a recurring appointment in your calendar, mid-December, to clean up all of my template kits. So maybe December 15th, every single year, you've got a note in your calendar that bings at you and reminds you that you have to go in and clean up your template kits. Okay, if you did something like that to protect yourself from this kind of error, that would make me feel a lot better, okay?
I agree, Doug. Instead of going in every year and having to update them all, I do a checklist, whether I'm doing a rural offer or a city offer, and just make sure I have the updated clauses inserted.
Yeah, that would be, in my mind, a far better way of doing this. So you can do that. It's fairly simple to know what clauses I have to insert. I've got to have pay to the balance. I've got to have financing, inspection, insurance, further visits, chattel warranty, whatever it might be. Have that checklist so that you can go through as you're creating your offer and check it. Yeah, I got that. I don't need that one. Check, check, check. I like that a lot better. But if you want to do this, this is the way to do it. Just make sure you set a reminder for yourself to go in and clean up your templates every single year, okay? I would hate for you to use an outdated clause and be sued on the content of the clause simply because AREA's lawyers will back you up. If you use their clauses and you're challenged on the content of the clause, you're safe. They will back you up on that. If you modify it, if you create your own, and you have to do that sometimes, I'm advocating that you do that sometimes, you're on your own. From the respect of OREA backing you up on the content of the clauses. But if you're using an old clause, you're on your own again, right? You might as well use the right ones, okay? So any other questions?
So if you have a buyer and you guys are putting in a offer property saying Bram, do you have to use the button forms or can you just use the ones that we just gone through?
Good question. I would be tempted to use their form. So you can switch between boards when you're doing that,
Right.
but you don't have to. The OREA form is good across the province.
Okay, so even if it's Durham, Brampton, whatever, as long as you can, okay, perfect, thank
Yeah,
you.
it doesn't matter. You can continue to just use the OREA form. You're perfectly fine to do that. Again, the law doesn't require us to use these forms. It's just best practice because our association, OREA, has developed them and they'll back us up. I've done deals where the lawyers have written the agreements, right? Or if you're working with a large company, I don't know if Patricia Care's on the call. She used to do leases with Bell Canada years ago. And do you think Bell Canada is going to use one of our forms? No, they have their own leases. So they would draft it and then, you just put some protections in for your clients to make sure that the lawyers check it out and carry on. But as in terms of doing a deal in another jurisdiction in the GTA or Ottawa or Windsor, whatever it might be, the OREA form is perfectly appropriate across the province.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Good question. Any other questions on creating templates and template offers and then turning them into transactions?
Oh yeah, the Schedule B part, if you can add in the wording to the extra page.
Add in the wording to the extra page.
Sorry, our trust account clause, if you could.
Oh, to create a custom clause.
Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick, I'll show you.
Or
how to
that
do
one,
that.
that
Yeah.
particular one.
Yep, and it works for any custom clause. So I'm going to leave this again. Actually, I need to go to setup right here. Okay, and when I'm in setup, I'm going to go to clauses. Thanks for reminding me. And it's called personal clauses. We used to call them custom clauses. In this system, they're called personal clauses. And here are all the clauses that it brought over for me that I was using in the past, okay? So if I'm going to add a new one, same thing, click the plus sign here that says create. When I'm in the clauses section, click create, add new clause, and then I would just retype or copy and paste the content of our trust account clause right here. And I would say C21 trust account clause, right? Text goes here, right? And I click save. And then I'm going to go back to my transaction to show you how to use it. I'm buying Jack's house.
Multiple offers, please.
Multiple offers. Multiple offers are still happening a lot out there, guys. I'm hearing people getting 4, 5, 6 offers on property still. It's crazy. So I'm going to go to my agreement of purchase and sale. Now, again, I'm working in the live transaction kit here, not the template. But I could put this in my template. So again, I'm in Schedule A. I click where I want to work. So the green box lights up. I know that's where I'm going to add text. And I'm going to go to clauses, just like I did before. But this time, instead of just searching for the clause, I'm going to go to my personal clauses because I know it's there. Right, so I click that, and then I'm just going to scroll down until I find, all right, it's C21 trust account clause. Select it, and then click OK, and there it is. So if I had put the proper text, the entire clause in there, it would insert it there automatically for me. So that's how you do that. Go to the settings, clauses, personal clauses, and create a new clause. Does that make sense? That answer your question, Monica? Excellent. Okay. Anybody else have any questions for me?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
If we were to put some clauses in the office section, one would be that interest-bearing trust account clause. What else would we put in there?
The email clause. So if
Yeah.
we're double ending a property, we'd want that email clause in there. That's a custom clause for us.
Other offices, trust account clauses, if we have them handy.
Anything else, guys? Thanks, Vanessa.
No problem. Thanks. This has been great.
Okay. All right, guys. If there are no other questions, we're going to call it a day, and I will talk to you later.
Thanks, Doug.
We'll see you
Have a
later.
good day, guys. Thanks, Dad.
Bye.
Thanks, Doug. Are you gonna put that due
Thank you.
diligent one in there?
I will
Yes,
put it.
do that.
Yeah, I'll put it up on the when I upload the video. It'll be there.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
All right. Talk to you later, guys.
Thanks
See
for
you tomorrow.
See ya.